Hello. Hello, everybody. It's good to be here with all of you. My name is Julie Larson, and we are at that time in our day when we can sit back and we can talk a little bit about caring for yourself. And I am honored to be here. I have spent my entire professional career. I'm a social worker by training. I have a private practice in both New York City and the Midwest. And frankly, I have clients all over the country at this point. And I've worked my entire career with people impacted by a cancer diagnosis and a medical unexpected medical diagnosis in their life. So I bring that with you to you here today. And I want to honor that all of the conversations that you are having throughout this conference that are giving you information and science about your diagnosis are so very important. And they contribute to feeling in control and having some degree of grounding and information as you navigate the path ahead. But this conversation we're going to have right now is also incredibly important because the way in which you care for yourself mentally and emotionally also matters a great deal to your overall quality of life. I have a lot to say. There's a lot that I want to cover, and I am aware that I might move pretty quick. I encourage you to please take a pad of paper and a pencil and make some notes for yourself. I want you to take my words today and really sit back and think about how you're doing and how it has been for you when you've been met with stress or uncertainty or worry, and what it is that works for you and what doesn't, and see how maybe some of the things I add today might help to support you already or give you some new strategies and tools to think about. I also encourage you to put questions into the chat. And I'm going to work to maybe leave enough time so that we can, and I can address and respond to some of those. And if I do not get to every single important thing that is added over there, trust I will find a way to you and respond to that later at a different time. Okay. So without further ado, let's get talking about caring for yourself and the mental and the emotional impact of your diagnosis. Stress. So let's just lay it out there and be honest that first of all, this is stressful, right? And I might be saying something within this slide that you already know, but I think it bears repeating that stress is quite simply your body's way of responding to a demand, right? And our bodies have a physical, emotional, and mental response to stress. And I'm defining that, not because we already understand about mind, body, but because some of the strategies that I'm going to talk about later are going to address kind of caring for yourself in those three different ways: physical, emotional, and mental, okay? There are different types of stress. So we can, our culture, and we often use that stress and we kind of, use it in a way that's like, oh, we're feeling so stressed and feeling so, horrible. And yet, not all stress is bad. If you're really being kind of like thinking about it, if you've ever had to complete a test or go on a first date or have a hard conversation, then you've likely felt stress, right? And sometimes what we feel of stress is a way in which our body is preparing us to meet a challenge. So preparing us and helping us to become very razor sharp focused and sit up and be on top of our game and organized so that we can have the difficult conversations that maybe we need to have, or that we can head into a day that is important and we need to kind of feel like ready for. So I want to kind of just be able to say that stress is not always bad. Stress sometimes is there for us. The other thing about stress is that it's subjective. And in my office, I am aware that sometimes it is, in fact, this issue that kind of complicates and makes relationships tricky sometimes. That what totally stresses me out may not worry you or upset you at all, and vice versa. So sometimes when we're feeling misunderstood or we're feeling out of sync or disconnected with other people, it might be that our stress isn't feeling completely understood by someone else. In a diagnosis of cholangiocarcinoma, it might be unrealistic to think that you might completely figure out how to get rid of fear, how to completely solve all of your uncertainty or overwhelm, right? We might have to just acknowledge that might live with us in some ways. And in fact, I know that certain surveys that have been done with cholangiocarcinoma patients have indicated that many, many patients are experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression. So if that resonates for you, and if I could see you, if you're nodding your head, you're not alone. So we know there are some very real and honest concerns and ways in which your life have been impacted by this diagnosis that we can't dismiss or minimize. However, some of that worry does only live in our mind. I'm going to talk a bit more about that. I don't want to completely discount the worry, but I also don't want it to overwhelm and hijack you and be what's driving the bus. So how do you kind of begin to allow for the difficult feelings that are going on for you, let them kind of linger in the background, and get comfortable with that? Not comfortable, that is not going to happen, but get accepting or more tolerant of those feelings so that you can put some attention and some focus on what's right in front of you. How you can feel calmer. When we are calmer, we not only feel better, we act smarter. So I sometimes say to the clients in my office, how in your day do you find reservoirs of calm or sips of self-care, right? That there might be hard feelings along the way, but in that, how do we find just moments where we can feel a breath? This requires the skill of kind of managing your mind, paying attention with purpose. So one of the things I'm going to say right now, and I'm hoping that maybe you can take this with you, is I'm going to encourage you to develop a habit of checking in with yourself. What do I mean by that? Just checking in, stepping back, like, how am I doing right now? What am I feeling? What's going on for me? Even as you listen to some of the talks today, okay, this is making me feel overwhelmed. Okay, so what do I need in this moment? Or this is making me feel really empowered because I'm gaining information, I'm educating myself, and that's helping me to know what I might talk about the next time I sit with my doctor. I'm feeling really grateful that I've got these supportive others that are sitting with me or that understand and that are joining me in this journey. So can you name what you're feeling? Secondly, part of self-awareness is that our stress shows up for us in different ways. So for you, how do you first recognize your stress? Where do you feel it in your body? Maybe some of us feel it because they can recognize the spinning thinking. Our thoughts get very busy and, oh, there it is. My head is turning. And that's one of the first signals or the white flags that I know that I'm feeling stress is in my thinking. Other of us feel quite emotional. And others still can feel like a tension in their shoulders or a pit in your stomach. So when I say all of this and you think about you, how does stress show up for you? What do you feel in your body? Or where do you recognize it first? That's an important thing to know because that gives you a clue of, oop, I need to slow down. I need to stop. I need to plug in some self-care. What are you doing? Can you ask yourself the question, what am I doing in this moment when I'm feeling unsettled, when I am feeling out of sync, when I'm not feeling myself, when I'm feeling worried and sad? What am I doing that's helpful? Am I going to bed? Am I getting to bed on time and getting rested? Am I getting a drink of water? Because that sometimes is helpful. Am I calling out and reaching out to a supportive friend? These are the things that help me to get grounded and to feel cared for and to feel not so alone. What am I doing that's not working so well for me? Do I find that I'm getting into kind of a spin of fortune telling, predicting the future and saying, this is what's bound to happen, kind of living out into a perceived future? Am I making assumptions? Am I comparing myself to other people? Gosh, everybody else is able to kind of get grounded or able to find silver linings, and I can't do that. I'm coping very poorly. Or for everyone else is kind of figuring out how to work in the midst of this, and I'm not. So that's leaving you feeling something. So are you comparing yourself to others, and is that working for you? So there are many different ways that sometimes our minds or our feelings kind of get a grip on us and don't always serve us. So beginning to pay attention to what that is for yourself and what it is that you're doing that is helping. To that end, let's spend some time talking through some strategies of what you might do when you find, oh, I'm in a place where I'm not at my best. I am feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling very, very scared. I'm feeling lonely, isolated. I'm gonna respond to these in those different categories that I had mentioned at the very beginning: thinking, feeling, and your body. Okay. So when we think first about your thoughts, and some of us are very much in our head, right? The thinking kind of gets into the loops sometimes. And so if you find that you're one of those people, sometimes talking through what's upsetting us or what's worrying us kind of helps us to settle that anxiety in a very organic and natural way. It helps us to kind of identify questions that we might have for a medical team. It helps us to kind of get to the bottom of what's feeling awkward or out of sync within a relationship. I sometimes think that's the real value and power of therapy, is just honestly sometimes the ability to have a safe space where we can talk through what's upsetting. Shifting your focus sometimes is another way of kind of redirecting your thinking. To this end, I'm going to give you a metaphor. I tell my clients in my office a lot to think about their attention as a flashlight, right? So if you think about your attention, and if your attention is all on the worry or the symptom that you're having that is making you concerned that things could be progressing, or that, you know, something about your life isn't going the way you're wanting it to or hoping for. If all of your attention, the flashlight, is shining on that, then that's going to kind of just keep you in that worry wheel, keep you in that experience. So one of the strategies of kind of coping could be to redirect your thinking. In that, I'm not saying that we minimize, dismiss, or kind of like ignore that worry and what's hard, but just, okay, I see you. I can tell that this is a worry. This is a concern of mine. I'm going to write it down. I want to put some attention to this and maybe see if I can address this at a different time. But also right now, I'm going to shift that flashlight over here to something else that's happening in my life right now, whether that is cooking a meal or whether that is in conversation or engaging with somebody that's right there with you, whether that's maybe doing some work or getting outside. I'm going to take that focus, take that flash, and I'm going to move it someplace else and see if that begins to help me to feel lighter, to feel a bit more calm. Refocusing your attention. So when you do that, it doesn't probably eradicate or completely get rid of what you're feeling, but it kind of allows it to hang out in the background. These are other questions or strategies to think about when you're thinking about that thinking. Do you find that a lot of your worry is sometimes that what if thinking? What if this? What if? Can you respond to what if with what is? So take inventory of your present. You know, what if this were to go wrong? What if I get to my scan? What if I get to my next doctor's appointment and this is? Okay, well, right now, this is what I'm feeling today, Wednesday, March 31st. I am recognizing that my body feels this way. I am recognizing this. Can you give me some black and white evidence of what's going on today that kind of helps you to feel more grounded and more centered in your right now, that keeps us out of that perceived future and back in your present? Even if that's not necessarily about your diagnosis, maybe we can't go there because that continues to just spin those worries. But what else? So the second one of what if to what else? So what else is happening? Oh, that's what's left. So for what else, I want you to think about, for my clients, often hear them tell me, when I feel the sensation in my body, whatever it might be, whether it's more fatigue, or maybe it's a certain pain, or maybe it is not something that happens in the night, something that they've experienced, a symptom, a physical symptom that they've experienced before that makes them worried about their health, right? And that's natural, and it's honest, and it's understandable that would exist, that would happen. Are there other possible truths about what that could be? Oh, you know what? If I really think about it, I was a bit more active yesterday. So and I didn't sleep well last night. So the fatigue I'm having may not be directly correlated to my diagnosis. It may also be related to the fact that I had a hard time sleeping last night, or that I was really active the day before, or I was working in the garden. And so maybe that's part of what's contributing to how my body is feeling today. We can get really focused right away on the part that feels dangerous or diagnosis. But if you step back and think, okay, what if, then what else? What else could this be? Are there more possible truths? Can you take your what ifs and turn them into then what? I'll never forget, I've sat with a number of clients who we talk first about, changing what if into what is, changing what if into what else. And I've had a number of people say to me, Julie, I try to do that. That's a lot of effort, but I find that my thoughts just kind of keep yanking me back into what feels really scary. And then I ask them, well, how are you sitting in front of me? How have you dealt with that? What did you do? How did you kind of respond to that for yourself? And sometimes I've had clients say to me, well, I just follow it down the path. What if I go back and my scans show, or my medical appointments show that things have progressed? Well, then what? Well, then my doctors begin to talk to me about, the ways in which we're going to manage side effects, or the ways that this could be impacting me. Or what if I try to go to work and I find out that I can't? Okay, well, then I'm going to kind of think about different accommodations. What if my daughter and I speak about my diagnosis and she breaks into tears and I can't handle it? Well, then what? I could tell her how that makes me feel, and we could sit together in that uncertainty and that sadness as a team. So sometimes when we're resisting what we're scared about, it kind of puts us in a battle with that feeling. And now not only are we feeling that emotion that's difficult, but we're also in a fight with it. We're trying to ignore it or push it away. But what if we just let it in and then say, well, then what would happen? And then what would happen? Then sometimes when we come up with a plan for that, it helps us to actually feel a little bit more grounded and settled. It can also help to illuminate the disparity between that worst case scenario, that place that we're scared of, and where we are right now. I've had clients tell me that they've followed that worst case scenario so far that suddenly they're like, that isn't where I'm at today. That's not at all where I'm at. And in doing that, it kind of helps them to see where I'm at right today is very different than that fear. And then finally, what if to what else, or what's left? So you're not just your diagnosis. Sometimes it's to consuming and it takes up a lot of space. But what else? What else is available to you? Turn the lights on in the rest of the room, and maybe a relationship as a parent or a spouse or a good friend. Maybe there are other things that you do with your time. Sometimes when we kind of say, okay, what else is there? Cancer and this diagnosis is very much consuming a lot of my time and my attention. And one of the ways to redirect my thinking is to kind of balance and to look at what else matters a great deal to me. Strategy number 2, let it be. Letting the thoughts just kind of come in. And when we let it be, we just let the feelings come in and teach us, and to say, I could keep trying to expel and to get rid of my feelings, but those feelings are present and they may be important and they may be teaching me. So name it and claim it. When we name what we're feeling, we give ourselves just a little bit of space between being consumed by that feeling and then having the feeling. And it gives us space to move and make choices for ourselves so that we get back in the driver's seat, not the feeling. So when you take the hit of the feeling, I have this visual. I feel fear, I feel loneliness, I feel anger, regret, uncertainty. Letting that feeling come in, letting it teach you, say, okay, it's Wednesday and I feel off. I feel fear. I feel sadness. That feeling is going to just walk with me today. It's going to be with me today as I do all the different things in my life. That sometimes when we accept that and we let that feeling in, it just lightens it just a bit. And we might learn something from the feeling. What do I mean by that? All of the things that we feel, the feelings and the distress that we feel, are often driven by an unmet need, right? I have a need for safety. I have a need for connection. I have a need for respect or consideration. And that when we're feeling irritable, or when we're feeling isolated, or when we're feeling sad, what is it that you're needing underneath there? I'm needing time. I'm needing stillness. I'm needing care. I'm needing consideration. I'm needing some support. So when you sit with the feeling and you really think about it, what is it that I'm needing underneath this? Then that begins to give you some information about what you ask for and how you reach out for support. You know that when our needs are met, we often feel calm, we feel joy, we feel gratitude, we feel contentment. But when our needs are not met, we feel resentful, we feel angry, we feel irritable. So really taking that exploration, that deep dive into, if I acknowledge, if I make space for this feeling and I really think about it, what's driving it? What's underneath there for me? Strategy number 3, the here and now. There is great value in challenging our thinking and in letting in our emotions, but sometimes that can kind of consume us. Like I've said, it's a lot. It's overwhelming. It can kind of hijack the day. And so how do you get back into your right here and your right now? And one of the most powerful ways is to use your body. Now, I know our bodies are filled with complicated feelings, especially as you're dealing with a diagnosis, right? But how you use your senses. So I often tell my clients, can you do a strategy called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So in a moment when you feel panic, when you feel kind of intensity, what are 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you feel? And as you go through that, it's going to encourage you to kind of slow down. Again, change that flashlight of attention to pay attention to the right now where you are. And that might begin to help you kind of settle and feel calmer. So if you feel a moment where there's panic or there's a real frenetic buzz and overwhelming emotion, there might be validity in taking a deep breath, getting centered in your body, putting your hands on your arms, giving yourself a hug, put your around, and go through your senses in order to get grounded in where you're safe. You're safe right now. We may not feel safe in our future. We may feel regret and doubt from our past, right? But in this exact right now, you're okay. Breaking time into a manageable chunk. So there can be seasons to this, right? Seasons or chapters where you're getting closer to a scan or a doctor's appointment, or maybe a difficult conversation or a group of people that can be stressful, right? And so how do you break those known moments that are difficult into much more manageable chunks, that the whole thing could feel overwhelming to approach a group or to go up to the next doctor's appointment or to see yourself through a treatment? But can I break this into, I'm just going to focus on waking up to lunchtime. That's it. And every time I start to kind of get concerned and worried about, I'm going to kind of bring it back to just until lunch. And then after lunch, I'm just going to get to dinner. And then I'm going to get to bed. That's it. I'm going to try and keep my thoughts right there where I feel like I can manage that. I tell my clients a lot to sort their thoughts. If you're paying attention, if you're watching your thinking, or you're kind of listening closely to what's going on in your mind, sometimes our thinking is about the future. What if, when this happens, or what if this happens, or if I get this, or what, that it's sometimes about the past. Can you bucket, and sometimes about what I have to do right now, but can you bucket your thinking? Okay, there I am. All that's consuming my head right now is all about the future. And I'm going to put that in my future bucket. And I'm going to leave that to my future self. I'm not dismissing it. I'm not minimizing it. But I'm just going to say that's not anything I can do anything with right now. I have no control over that right now. It's important to me, but I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to bookmark it, and my future self is going to deal with that. I'm going to leave that to the smarts and the wisdom of my future self, which is not where I'm at right now. Okay. Control, Alt, Delete. This is one of my favorites. How do we Control, Alt, Delete sometimes out of our emotion? Just anchor away from it so we can get kind of in a bubble of worry or fear or sadness and hopelessness and desperation. And sometimes in that moment, we need to get out of that. So Control, Alt, Delete is that kind of thing you can do on your computer when it gets all what my kids call glitchy, or it's not working, right? And it just restarts the system. So can you get outside? Can you turn on music, connect with a friend? Don't connect with a friend and talk about what you're worried about. Connect with a friend about a TV series that you're watching or something completely separate. Not for the purpose of kind of repressing this, but for the purpose of getting yourself calm and in a different place where you can return to that worry or return to that concern later when you don't feel so activated, okay? My last thing, and then I want to get to some questions. I know we're running out of time already. I could talk to you guys for a long time about this. I know this is important, but can I encourage you to do a quiet and sacred just process every day of just connecting with yourself, reminding yourself about you. We lose a lot of who we are in this. Our identity feels a bit shaky, but can you find something about you? I am persistent. I am sensitive. I am a hard worker. I am kind. Whatever it might be, I don't know. I challenge you to kind of look at that. If you have a hard time, ask somebody who loves you to tell you about yourself. I can. Something that you can do. I can make an effort to check in with myself. I can, organize these questions for my doctor, and then I will. I will think more about how I meet my stress and what I can do to get myself grounded or calm. So those are things that you can say to yourself that might be part of how you care for yourself too. I am, I can, I will. Okay, I'm coming over here to this window. We are running late on time. I want to tell you that if we don't get to this, I'm going to circle back in here and I'm going to find some of these questions, and I will also follow up later. First question, will stress cause delay your treatment, or does cancer feed on stress? What we know about that is not completely clear, but mostly what I like to tell people is that when you feel stress, we make choices to deal with that stress, right? What are we going to do to deal with how I'm feeling? And some of the choices we make can either be healthy or not so healthy, right? So if a way in which you deal with your stress is to drink a bottle of wine or go smoke a bunch of cigarettes because that makes you feel different, that's not as healthy of a way of dealing with stress. There are other choices that might leave you feeling different. Taking a walk, giving a drink of water, talking with people. There are no good or bad feelings. Feelings are feelings, and feelings are honest. And in fact, if we don't let in the feelings that we sometimes call bad, like anger or worry or fear, then we don't learn what they're trying to tell us. Right? That anger sometimes is calling upon you to speak up for yourself. That worry is sometimes saying, hey, I've got a lot of unanswered questions here. And how do I begin to find those answers? So the feelings that we have are sending us messages. And we don't want to kind of swing the fences that they're bad. They're important. I have low moments, very emotional, scared of the future. The person that wrote that in, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your truth. I hope that you keep telling that to others. And I hope that you find other survivor circles where you, cancer survivor, other groups of people who are diagnosed, like groups like this, and places where you can say that out loud and where you can learn you are not alone. You are not alone. And that having a low moment, being incredibly emotional or scared, doesn't mean you're doing it bad, doesn't mean that there's going to be a problem. It means that it's honest. And that how can you have that feeling and engage in your life at the same time? Connect with your children, figure out what to eat for dinner, find a way to go take the dog for a walk, right? That we can live in both. Okay, I am next question, and there's a bunch popping up here. I definitely was forecasting my future from diagnosis for about the first year. I was sure I was going to die within a matter of weeks. It made my life miserable. Once I started treatment and feeling better, this all went away. But I spent a year not living because I was sure I was a dead man. Again, you're not alone. And that's honest, right? It would be understandable that fear and worry. I'd be surprised if you weren't feeling fear and worry. That's honest. That's understandable. But when we begin to know it's hijacking me, it's stealing my present. The life you're living is happening right in front of you, right? So we have to be able to say, wow, this diagnosis and the uncertainty of tomorrow, it leaves me feeling scared. And that's true and that's honest. And at the same time, it focuses me on what's important to my right now. I'm going to read a couple more minutes, one more minute. I think we're close here. I'm going to read one more. I was unable to make plans for more than 3 months in the future because that's how often I was getting scanned after recurrence. It took several years of no evidence of disease to be comfortable looking further out into the future. Everyone makes choices about how far we can kind of look into where we feel comfortable, where we feel it's manageable. And if for you today, that is just right now, today, or to lunch, accept that. That's okay. That might change. That could be different. But for today, that's what feels safe. And we'll deal with where you focus and what feels comfortable tomorrow. I know there's more. And if there are more, you can always find me, Julie Larson, lcsw.com. You can email me, we can chat, and certainly put it into the group.